Our brother asked us to avenge him, and today that's what we're going to do with this Flashgitz inspired Black Templar loadout for the tactical. So for those of you that don't know, there's a channel on YouTube called Flashgitz. They did an interesting little animation that depicted the Black Templar Space Marine chapter engaging in a crusade against the furries. And so we're actually going to build a class today based off of that little animation. We're going to do a complete breakdown of all the weapons and the perks that go into it. As always, this is going to be meant more for fun, but what I will say is I have been able to do quite a bit with this class in terms of playing on some of the higher difficulties, so it is viable even if you want to play on something such as Ruthless, Lethal, or Absolute, but there are more efficient ways to do that. Now, most importantly, you'll want to get the look right. So in the animation, it was specifically depicted as the Black Templars that were engaged in the crusade with the furries. So thanks to the last update, we were able to essentially use all the armor parts from the Black Templar champion and just put that on the tactical class. Now, if you don't have the season pass, you can just use the base armor and all the little cosmetics that come with the Black Templars in the heraldry here. So as you can see, you do get a helmet with them, plus you get all the little logos, which are going to be very important. But ultimately, have fun however you want. Whatever chapter you want to crusade against the furries, we welcome you into our fold. But again, if you're trying to go for that specific animation style, you'll want to go with the Black Templars, and in all honesty, the base armor might be a little bit more accurate to what you see within that video. So starting off, we are going to be using the new Pyreblaster here. Quite honestly, I love the Pyreblaster, especially when you compare it to the Heavy Incinerator. I think this one, you're just a little bit more mobile, and I really enjoy that. Plus, by playing as tactical, we do have a backup with our chainsword, just in case, for whatever reason, we light too many of nature's creatures on fire. We do have a nice little way to carve them up if they get too close. But I personally choose to run the Unclean Liberation. The only difference is you get more, you have a faster vending speed with the Unclean Liberation. However, if ammo seems to be something that is kind of a downside for you, you can go with the Gathelmore Crusade. You are going to lose out a little bit with the venting speed, but you will get a fair bit of additional ammo. But I have found some ways to kind of rectify that with this class build. Now, looking into our perk tree, this is all based around trying to deal as much damage as possible with the Pyreblaster. So we started off with Perpetual Cooling, which is just going to help decrease the heat by 20%. Moving over into Divine Might, which is just a generic damage increase of 20%. Then over to Contingency Plan, which is anytime your ammo reserve is less than 25%, your melee damage is going to gain a little bit of a buff, which again is just something nice. If you do find yourself running out of ammo, you're going to get a little bit of a melee increase. Then we went up to Potent Flame, which is just going to increase your burning damage by 15%. Then over to Flame of Ascension. So anytime you burn 5 enemies, you're going to restore 1 armor segment. This is huge for keeping you alive because you're going to be able to light 5 different things on fire very quickly. Now there is a 30-second cooldown, but that's okay. 30 seconds will pass pretty quick. Then we moved over into Potent Flame, which again is just going to increase your burning damage by 15%. And then Flash Burn. So if the enemies are up close and personal to you, you can hit them with a little bit of Burning Love, so you're going to be getting an extra 20% more damage. And then finally, I grabbed Resilient Flame, which just decreases your overall charging time by 75%, which again is just going to allow you to be a good steward of the forest and ensure everything is engulfed in flames. So for the secondary, honestly, you can pick between either 3 of them. I went with the plasma pistol just because I typically don't use it a whole lot. I don't think there's any wrong choice for whatever you want to do. I personally ran with the Unclean Liberation Alpha just because of the extra magazine capacity. Honestly, the vending speed I feel is pretty reasonable for the plasma pistol, and in terms of the rate of fire, it feels pretty good regardless, so I decided to grab the extra ammo. Here's what I chose for the plasma pistol in terms of my tree, but we're not going to get really into this one just because the plasma pistol's been out for a while, but the Pyreblaster is new. And then I went with the chainsword over the combat knife, again, just because it's something that I saw used in the actual animation. But also, I mean, we are dealing with furries here. Do you truthfully want to handle them with a combat knife or a chainsword? Which feels more appropriate? I think we can all agree the chainsword does. But I'd say pick whichever one you want. There is no wrong answer. Whatever your personal defense style is, that's what I would say to go with. Or, you know, if you're a little bit bougie, might as well flex on the pores with the new heroic chainsword, which is, as you can see up top here, something we're working towards. We haven't made it quite there yet. But in terms of the weapons, that's what you're going to want to go with. Now, over into the perk tree. So we're going to ignore the prestige perks down here. Just run whatever you normally want to. In order for you to change them up, you would have to reset them, which is 750 points, which can be kind of annoying. So whatever you have down here, just keep it down here. This is just more for fun anyways. And that way you don't have to spend anything whenever you want to switch back. So to start off, we're going to grab Balanced Distribution. This is going to allow our Pyreblaster to get a 10% damage increase, although it does come with a 10% damage nerf to our secondary. However, we're going to rectify that with versatility. So anytime that we switch weapons, specifically going from our primary to our secondary, it's going to end up dealing 25% more damage until we have to reload, or in the case with the plasma pistol, it overheats. Now, you won't be getting, or you still will get, a 25% damage increase. Just remember though, we do have balanced distribution on, so it's only going to equal out to a 15% increase. Now, the next thing we're going to grab is Emperor's Vengeance. This is again going to be kind of our fix to picking the specific Pyreblaster that doesn't have a whole lot of ammo. Anytime that we kill a Majoris level enemy or higher, we're going to get the equivalent of 1 magazine added back to our primary weapon. There is a 30-second cooldown on this, but Majoris spawn pretty frequently, so we are going to hopefully be able to keep our Pyreblaster, if not topped up, at least still in the fight. Now, within the team perk category, I think there's really two that you can go with for here. That either being Secure Stockpile or Aligned Aim, just if you want a little bit more damage on your ranged weapons. I ultimately went with Secure Stockpile because I figured since we already got the fire, let's, throw out some explosives as well and make sure we get the job done appropriately. Remember, never half-ass multiple things, whole-ass one thing, and that's what we're doing here. Next, we're going with Target Lock. So enemies that are marked by your Auspex, they're going to take 75% more equipment damage. Also, I forgot to mention what this does, but Secure Stockpile, it's going to restore your grenades by 1 every 60 seconds. So we're going to be able to add that on to Target Lock. So as long as we're popping our Auspex, we're going to be able to get a good bit of damage. I would say, personally, I would save your Auspex for when you see a relatively big group of enemies. That way you're going to get the maximum benefit out of this, since we're not going to have a way to really recharge our Auspex too quick. Then I went with Precise Calibration. So enemies that are in the area receive an additional 75% damage. However, the radius is going to be reduced by 25%. But if enemies are all clumped up, you can go ahead and mark them, and whether you're engaging with the Pyreblaster, grenades, or even the plasma pistol, you're still going to be able to do some monstrous damage to them rather quickly. Then our last perk in the gear category, I went with Expert Timing. Again, this is giving us another nice damage buff of 75%. However, it is going to reduce the duration from 8 seconds down to only 4 seconds. So 4 seconds will go by rather quick, but the nice thing with the Pyreblaster and also your equipment is you're going to be able to hit multiple enemies at once, so you'll still be able to reap a lot of the benefits that come with it. Finally, with the signature perks, I ended up going with Radiating Impact, just because, again, you're going into an execution, but we also want to have some fun with the explosives. And every time that you do a melee finisher, you're going to deal significant area of effect damage within a 10-meter radius. There's a 90-second cooldown on here, but it is a really fun perk, and it can also knock out multiple Majoras rather easily. Just one thing to keep in mind, wherever you trigger that animation, that's where the AoE is going to take effect. You won't be able to wait for your character to run up and actually perform the execution, or if you have something jumping towards at you, it will trigger immediately as soon as your character goes into the animation. So just keep that in mind in case you see maybe a whole bunch of enemies grouped next to a knocked out Majoris. You don't want to go in for the execution immediately. Maybe just run up to it without triggering the execution. That way, once you actually hit whatever button it is for whatever controller that you're using, you get that nice AoE and you can easily clear everything out. But this was the build that I came up with for this specific class. I've actually had a lot of fun with it. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about a flamethrower and running through operations with it that's so much fun, especially on those Tyranids. I love burning those little fuckers to the ground. It feels so good, and I'm so happy we finally got the Pyreblaster. But that's my build for it. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and as always, thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time.